eyes fixed on the cabinet, seeing the sword splinter the wood, wondering how the girl could possibly survive, but somehow knowing that she would. You needed to have colour, music, lights, and 2,000 people in the audience. None of that was possible on a tiny black and white screen. No, magicians would vanish as surely as the girl disappearing into the cabinet. Abracadabra. Goodbye. But in the meantime, Max was halfway through a 2-week run in London, playing to full houses every night. He owed his good fortune to a successful pantomime in Brighton 2 years ago. The producer, Bert Billingham, owned a string of theatres, and he had been so impressed by Max's portrayal of Abanazar in Aladdin that he had immediately booked him for a tour of number ones, the top music hall venues. Now Max was enjoying a resurgence in popularity that had culminated in the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. No, he couldn't really complain. The rain had almost stopped. Max strolled past the Criterion and the Café de Paris, thinking of leisurely pre-war days, of champagne and showgirls and dinner-jacketed audiences rising to applaud him. The Café de Paris had suffered a direct hit during the Blitz, Ken Snakehips Johnson and his band dying as they had lived, performing on the stage. But, like so much else, the club had survived and reinvented itself, and now the billboards were announcing a new band, live that evening. One of the new comedians, too, Spike Milligan. Perhaps this was a sign that Max also could adapt to the post-war world. But if he wasn't a magician, what else could he do? At Charing Cross Road he found a small but excited crowd outside a news theatre. They were queuing. An elderly woman told him to watch a film about the Queen. It was called Happy and Glorious, and was due to start at 6. Max looked at his watch. It was 5 o'clock. He raised his hat and made his way towards Trafalgar Square and the Strand. He was staying at the Strand Palace Hotel. If you stayed at cheaper hotels, his friend Edgar told him, you wouldn't ever have to worry about money again. But Max had had his fill of cheap hotels, seaside digs with mustachioed landladies, soot-stained terraces in the north, faded stuccoed splendour in Bristol, Glasgow and Edinburgh. When he was in London and he could afford it, he stayed at the Strand Palace. He stepped into the Art Deco lobby, feeling, as he always did, that he was on board an ocean liner. Maybe he should do a transatlantic trip, performing card tricks at the captain's table, entertaining bored widows as part of the cabaret. On second thoughts, maybe not. "Mr. Mephisto?" The commissionaire was approaching him, bearing an envelope on a silver salver. "A gentleman called for you this afternoon." A gentleman? That must mean it wasn't one of the pros on the bill with him. Mildly interested, Max opened the envelope and found a note. "Can you please telephone me on the following number as soon as possible? It is a matter of the greatest urgency." There was a card, too, embossed. General D.N. Petra, D.S.O. It took a lot to surprise Max. But yes, he was surprised. D.I. Edgar Stephens got the call at work. It had been a rather trying day. His team were investigating the death of Madame Zabini, real name Doreen Barton, a gypsy fortune-teller whose body had been washed up near the Palace Pier 2 days ago. It was impossible to tell from the post-mortem whether Doreen had been pushed or whether she'd jumped. Her gypsy caravan was actually on the pier itself, so, presumably, it would have been easy for her to climb onto the railing and jump to her death. But why? Her colleagues and family were unanimous in describing Doreen as a kind, contented woman, salt of the earth, according to the pier's entertainment manager, Lou Abrahams. "You'd think, being psychic, she'd know if someone was going to do her in," said D.S. Bob Willis. "Do her in?" repeated D.S. Emma Holmes. "Are you trying to sound like a member of a razor gang?" The razor gangs were hoodlums who had terrorised Brighton in the 30s and 40s. Based mainly at the racecourse, they were famous for racketeering and organised violence. In recent years, though, there were signs that the gangs were losing their influence, or that the police were winning the battle against them. Edgar inclined to the former view, his boss Frank Hodges to the latter. There was no sign that Madame Zabini had been the victim of a gang. Her sad, bloated body showed no sign of razor cuts or violence of